or
Welcome to the podium. My name is Spencer Emmanuel. You're welcome to the show. Today's topic is the 1966, the January 15th, 1966 coup, and from an insider's perspective. I have wonderful guests on the program today. I'm actually delighted to have uh, a legend, a Nigerian legend. I call him a Biafran legend. And I also have an author today on the program. I have with me, and I'm delighted to have with me, Colonel Emmanuel Nworah Nwobosi. He's the Ogene Obosi. You're welcome to the program, sir.
thank you very much.
Colonel Emmanuel Nworah Nwobosi was a captain in the Nigerian Army, and he was also a colonel in the Biafran Army. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank
I'm
you.
actually delighted to have you today.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
And sitting next to him is an author, and his name is Mr. Chukwudum Ikeazor. Mr. Chukwudum Ikeazor is a retired police officer, and he authored a book called Nigeria 1966, The Turning Point. Chukwudum, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir.
I'm delighted to have you today.
Likewise.
Like I said, the topic of the program today is to do about, it's to do with an insight into the 1966 coup, the January 15th, 1966 coup, from an insider's perspective. I mean, there's been so many various accounts of what happened. There's, like they say in war, in history, you have the perspective of the victor, you have the perspective of the vanquished. I'll use those words because that's what, the words that were used. But we'd like to get an insight from a legend who participated in that war, the war that happened subsequently, and also the legend he's actually the only living legend who participated in that coup, which, to some accounts, people say that led to what we have today in Nigeria. So, Colonel, I'd like you to introduce to Nigerians a bit about yourself and tell Nigerians your experience generally, just like a mini biography, but, from your experience from childhood to your, educational background and right up to where you are today. So,
Thank you very much. My name is Emmanuel Nworah Nwobosi, Ogene Obosi. I served in the military and I retired as a colonel. Right now, I can tell you about my childhood days, but briefly.
yes, sir.
I was born January 21st, 1939, in Port Harcourt. Of course, those days, when the civil servants, and my father was a male nurse, he ended up retiring as a superintendent of nursing, which was a good post at the time. But during his sojourn, he went on a lot of transfers.
Okay.
He took me to when I was still a child, and not old enough to go to school. He took me to Meduguri.
Okay.
That was an experience.
And that's in the northern part of Nigeria.
Northernmost part of Nigeria. And then when I was old enough to enroll in a school, they brought me back to the then south,
Okay.
which later became the southeast enrollment school. And that was on and on and on. I believe I will stop so far because if I carry on, I'll
Yes.
take
Yes.
all your time.
Okay, thank you for
Ask
that.
me
Sir.
the next question.
And like we talked about, the topic of the
Okay.
discussion is about the 1966 coup,
Okay.
February 15th. I'd like to get your account of, an insider's perspective, because, like I said in the beginning, there's been so many mysteries and lies. Like I watched your earlier, that's been in social media, your discussion about, about what happened. There's been so many misconceptions about what happened. There's been so many people putting their own twist to what happened. And you told us you're 80 years old now, that you don't have to lie anymore.
Yeah.
So we'd like to know, from your perspective, what led up to the coup. Why was there reason to carry out such a coup, and what was the thinking at the time? That made you young officers, because most of you were very young. You were 27 at the time, weren't you?
I was.
What led up to the coup, and give us that insight.
What happened was that as a young officer, just trained from the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst, where we were taught all the principles of how a military officer should behave and support the government of the day, not really participate. We came back home and set up units. I particularly was lucky because at that time Nigeria had no artillery unit.
Okay.
So we set up with some officers from, that was Major Madebo at the time. There was Abakiari, captain.
Okay.
There was my coursemate, Pat Hanekwe. We all got together in Kaduna. We got soldiers from the depot, and we started teaching them how to set up. We started setting up the artillery.
Okay. Were most of you trained from Sandhurst? All of you that came back?
Madebo was trained at Sandhurst.
Okay.
Abakiari was not trained at Sandhurst. He was trained at Mons of
Okay.
Secondary School in Aldershot at the
Aldershot,
time.
okay.
Pat Hanekwe and myself were trained at Sandhurst. And later on, officers like Capt Bali,
Okay.
who was our junior, he was also trained at Sandhurst,
Okay.
and Abdul Waya. So that was enough. We set up the first unit in Kaduna, and then there was need to set up the second unit in the west,
Okay.
and that was Abeokuta, because there was a unit there, a Reki squadron. And it fell on me, and I thought that was a very, very good opportunity for me to show myself, because those days you wanted to do something so that you can carry your head high and be proud.
Yeah.
So I went with Capt Bali as my second in command. We got to Abeokuta with some men and set up the second artillery unit.
Okay.
This was ongoing, but at the same time, there were crises in Nigeria. Crisis with the Yorubas at war with each other.
Was it a political crisis?
It was political crisis because Awolowo had left the West for the federal constituency, and he handed over to Akintola, who was one of his lieutenants. But it turned out that Akintola was not doing according to the boss.
Yeah.
There were a number of problems around the whole place, and what we saw at the time was that Akintola instead aligned himself with the Sardauna of Sokoto, who was the supreme leader in the north. And even though they were of different parties, they formed an alliance. And with that alliance, more problems, we could see them on the horizon. Except for people who did not have presence of mind. You go around feeling happy. I must say, life in the army as a second lieutenant a lieutenant or a captain was good.
Yeah.
But if you were happy with yourself, but you saw your people being treated badly.
Yeah.
And when I say your people, in Yoruba land, the Yorubas outside the barracks were my people.
Oh.
But instead, with the crisis, we saw a lot of them running to our barracks for safety. So I gave the instructions that our barracks gate will be open and they'll be allowed to come in. And the more they knew about this, the safer they felt. And they'll try to make it to the barracks, and whenever they got into the barracks, they felt safe. So this was the order of the day at the time when all these things were happening. Now, on the other hand, Major Chukwudum Ikeazor, who was my senior at St. John's College, Kaduna, but we knew ourselves, had gone through Sandos before me, and after that we kept in touch. And there was that esprit de corps. We felt happy with each other. There was another officer, Chris Anoforo, who also went through St. John's. He was of Nzogo's.
The same mates.
They were mates, yeah, they were classmates and so on. So this went on and on and on. And we were becoming uncomfortable the way politics was going on in Nigeria, and especially the western part of Nigeria. At one time, it was termed the Wild West, and it was really wild.
Was it when I heard something like there was wet year, and what was all the wet year stuff? I heard about
well,
that.
the wet year stuff came about when it was a slang.
Yeah.
People would buy petrol, that's fuel,
Yeah.
buy them in cans, and then pour them on vehicles, on houses, in type of property, even on human beings,
Yeah.
and set them on fire.
Was it targeted? Were they targeting people, or was it just a general? Well, what was the purpose of that?
The purpose of it was that the Akintola group, who had formed at that time, what they call the NNA, Nigerian National Alliance, with Sardauna, and it was given the leeway, sort of, to carry on. And when I say leeway, I mean by the federal government, which was controlled by Sardauna from the north. We were all aware of that. And they started killing people in the hundreds of thousands. And it looked as if there was no end in sight. Then some of our young officers, and when I say young officers, majors and captains, started. Actually, it was a talk in town. When people talk, they say, "Look, you army people, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
But you won't tell them you're going to do something.
Yeah.
We felt it, and it got to a point. We started feeling guilty and ashamed of ourselves to go out in town and be identified as a soldier. They won't do anything, but you had the self-conscience. So this thing went on and on and on, unabated. Now, Major Nzogu was the first Nigerian to take over and head the military intelligence from the white officer who was leaving. Even though he told us that when the British were moving out, they removed a lot of files because they didn't want us to know uh, the type of administration they ran there, which led to a popular saying in Hausa. I don't know if I can use it.
Yeah,
here.
you say,
Okay.
you're teaching us, yeah.
They say, Ba Asen. Another way to say it, Ba Gane, Banam Bature. Say Bayan Tehiansa. For those who understand Hausa, what you understand, but those who don't, it means when a white man, and they meant the British in this context, when the British is in your country and doing whatever type of havoc, you will not know.
Okay.
It's only after he's left
Okay. Yeah.
that you start to see what terrible things he did. Yeah. So Nzogu was there, and he started gathering his own team and intelligence.
Yeah.
In the process, he got to know that Sardauna, apart from a number of other things he was doing, which we felt was none of our business, but as far as it affected us, he was really desperate in trying to conquer Nigeria. And by conquer, it was in the line of Usman Dan Fodio to Islamize the whole of the South. And he would say this in the House of Assembly in Kaduna. He would say it at public fora. He didn't care. He was so...
He had a northern agenda.
He had a northern agenda, and because he didn't fear anybody anymore. He was too careless in his utterances. And with us, trying to feel comfortable as officers, because it wasn't easy. School cert, a degree, you go through some also months or whichever, and you come back as a lieutenant, captain and all that. You felt good. But feeling good was one thing, and seeing your people
being impoverished, killed.
And then some of us with like minds started thinking of a solution to this. Those of us who, because you will not talk to somebody about a coup, for instance, if you don't have at least 90% or thereabout, the certainty that he will agree. Because if the person disagrees, to carry on without him, it's a danger. And a lot of the officers will have known that if they say no, that their lives are in danger.
As well.
Some may not say no. And we had good examples. But in their minds,
they didn't want to go along.
They didn't want to go along. But they didn't want to take the chance. They say, okay. So this went on, and we decided to take the bull by the horn. We knew that there were some senior officers who could have done it with greater ease. All you had to do was give orders to your subordinates and they carry it out. For instance, somebody like Ironsi would have been a good choice if he was the type who would do it. But because Ironsi was a problem, and to even tell him, for him to say no.
What do you mean it was a problem? Was he not? He wasn't.
Number one, he wasn't well educated.
To the standards.
To the standards.
Didn't
Two.
he study abroad like you guys? And he didn't go to Sandhurst? No.
No,
Okay.
he didn't. He rose from the ranks.
Okay.
And rising from the ranks wasn't really the problem. But in those days, we knew those who rose from the ranks were people who had what you call a first school living certificate.
School cert.
And so on. No, it wasn't school cert.
It wasn't school cert then? Okay.
No.
First school. Okay.
First school living certificate.
Okay.
Then he wasn't enlightened.
Okay.
Another thing is that Ironsi was used to drinking a lot of whiskey.
Okay.
In fact, it became common knowledge. Even in functions, he would down a bottle.
Wow.
And people will be clapping for him. We were embarrassed by our own man.
Yeah.
The man who was supposed to be an icon and the person you looked up to for leadership behaving that way. But
so some of the younger guys who were exposed felt it was, you saw the killings going on, you felt it was time to do something to
do something to
it. Yeah.
So we started getting together.
Okay.
And planning, one person talking to the other person and all that type of thing. And it eventually ended up with the January 15th coup.
Okay.
Now, talking about January 15th, we did not just come out of the blues and decide January 15th. We were planning these things and taking our time to do the groundwork. When Chukwudum Ikeazor, through his intelligence network, got reliable information that Sardauna of Sokoto was using Akintola as his base, and then using some top military officers to perpetrate that Islamization.
Yeah. The agenda, the
agenda.
Yeah, pushing the agenda.
Deep in the Quran in the sea. Yeah. When we knew this, we worked very hard to find out the date. And when we got the fact that it was January, it was planned for January 17th.
Okay.
So we had to preempt it.
Okay.
And that was why we rushed our own to 15th, 2 days before, and preempted it. It took everybody by surprise. Yeah. We were not, I would say, 100% ready for that date, but we had to do it.
Okay.
And another thing that happened, if you cast your mind back, after the coup happened January 15th, Adaka Boro, Isaac Adaka Boro, who was to be part of that Islamization, did his own, or started, he struck.
Okay, he struck it.
In the rivers, hoping that was their own agenda going on.
Okay.
It was under Ironsi that he was napped and all that type of thing. So that was how this thing happened. And unfortunately for us, it did not go as we planned it. Because if the coup had succeeded, all these arguments about this happened or this shouldn't have happened wouldn't arise.
Yeah.
Because we knew that we had everybody liked the coup.
It was popular.
It was very popular.
Because I remember
there was jubilation, north, south, wherever.
Because I was going to say something. I remember in or the early 80s.
Okay.
There was that sort of feeling when there was a military coup. I remember I was a young kid then, where there was this feeling in the air that the military perhaps might do better. You know,
Okay.
I don't know. Perhaps was that what was in the air at the time? You think it was a similar sense of there was a desperation for something different to happen. I'm just buttressing what you're saying.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about 1980s.
Yeah, no, I'm saying something similar. When I was a kid, I noticed that little sense of there was some, but obviously it felt again. It was something that
they felt at that time.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you that in our own time,
Yeah.
not only did they feel,
Yeah.
it got to a stage, the civilians started getting desperate.
Okay.
Even in beer parlors, where you meet your civilian friends to have a drink, you're a mufti.
Yeah.
People didn't know you, but those who knew you, including your own friends, after a while they say, you army people, how can you be around and these things are happening?
They're not doing anything, yeah.
So you come out to chill and feel happy.
Yeah.
And somebody is telling you all these things. You've been feeling bad yourself.
True. Yeah.
So that was the situation at the time.
Okay.
I remember when in Kaduna,
Yeah.
and in Kaduna we had a lot of officers who would go out to drink, and then they are confronted with this type of situation.
Yeah. And before you move a bit further, I would like you to address the notion, because I know perhaps people watching out there are looking at it and saying, oh, well, it was probably an Igbo coup. You know, that narrative that's out there. What would you say to people who say that, who try to put that across?
Well, it's a pity. I sympathize with a lot of people, but because they're not aware of the facts.
Yes.
They felt that way.
Yes.
I cannot tell them, look, you're talking rubbish,
Yes.
or go to hell.
Yeah.
No, that I will not do that.
Yeah.
But I know that when we planned the coup, it was just a group of us, and we were thinking and acting Nigerian.
Okay.
And everything we did at that time was in the interest of Nigeria. The composition of the coup at that time, and I believe that because of the restriction or the conditions, especially educational qualification for joining the army or for applying to join the army, at that time being controlled by the British themselves, the Nigerians hadn't taken over.
Okay.
Actually, Nigerians, the British were still the GOC, the brigade commanders. In fact, you had some sergeants who were British.
Okay.
So those conditions, the Igbos eventually excelled and became about maybe 65 to 70% of the officer corps in the army.
Okay.
So when you start making any selection, whether for a platoon attack or for company attack or whatever, there's always that tendency that the officer corps, the Igbos, will be in preponderance.
Yes.
So also the troops, the soldiers that you used, were mainly from the north.
Okay.
That didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Now, we had in our group, apart from the Igbos, this is to debunk that claim of Igbo, we had Major Ademoyega, who was Yoruba.
Yes.
We had Swantong from the north.
Okay. I've never heard of it. Something. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had what's his name? Atombera from the north.
Okay.
In my own unit, I had Bob Ebwiko, who was from the Delta.
Yes.
Not just Delta, but Middle Belt at the time. So when people talk about Igbo coup and all that, you start to wonder. Then, Ademoyega hinted Colonel Fajui,
Okay.
who was Yoruba, and Fajui gave his blessing.
Okay.
He would not join, but he gave his blessing.
He was behind it. Yeah.
These are the ones we know.
Yeah.
So it boils down to the fact that sometimes you get tired of being asked the same question over and over again.
Yes.
But I will not get tired.
Yes.
Because the people who are grieved,
Yes.
they are grieved.
True.
But it's unfortunate.
Yes.
That was a fact of history.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Chukwudum Ikeazor, I'd like to give you some time to tell us a bit more about this particular area, because I know in your book, The Turning Point, I know you address some of these issues, yeah? Nigeria, The Turning Point. But from your perspective, what would you say about this notion that it was an Igbo coup?
I'll be very plain and very clear about it. Let me start by saying that if I were a Northerner and I woke up on the morning of the 15th of January and I saw the outcome of the coup in terms of the results, because obviously we wouldn't know your intentions, we don't see what's in your heart. But I'm seeing the outcome of the coup in terms of the deaths or the killings, in terms of the officer corps who were killed, in terms of the leaders who were killed, and also in terms of the preponderance of officers from a particular ethnic group. I would feel concerned. And if the same happened to Igbo people or to Easterners, of which I'm one,
Yes.
and I woke up one morning and I realized that Ojukwu has been killed,
Yes.
Irunsi has been killed, Madiebo has been killed,
Yeah.
Nworah was killed, the Midwest Premier was killed, I will also be very concerned. So I think it's very important for us to understand the concerns of Northerners in terms of what they're seeing.
Yes.
Was the coup an Igbo coup? During my research on my book, I did a lot of inquiries, I asked a lot of questions, I interrogated many documents, and I also spoke to some actors on both sides of the coup equation. And it's evident to me that that coup was not for Igbo people. It was not for the Igbo interest or the Igbo agenda. Like the colonel has explained, the preponderance of Igbo officers can be explained by the fact that the Nigerian Army at the time, the vast majority of officer corps were Igbo. Secondly, there are also other actors within the coup itself who were not Igbo in any case, who were happy to join in the coup. I understand that obviously it was only one Yoruba officer who was one of the 5 majors, 1 out of 5, but it's still a figure. And also the beneficiaries of the intervention
Yes.
of the coup were actually the Western region,
Okay.
which prior to that time was aflame.
Yes.
You talked about Operation Wetie and the killings of thousands of people and the suppression of the Yorubas by the NNA alliance.
Yeah.
With the coup, that stopped.
Okay.
Then you go to the Middle Belt in TV land, which I'm quite familiar with. A lot of killings there, repression of the TV, if you like, self-determination.
Okay.
A lot of killings. And therefore, the beneficiaries of the coup were actually, in terms of territories, were actually in the Middle Belt area and the West.
Okay.
Prior to the coup, the East was at peace. There was nothing going on in the East.
Yeah.
So was the Midwest as well too. So with all these facts, which are not very apparent, or not often, if you like, interrogated, it's evident that the coup was not an Igbo coup. However, if I may just conclude, however, the way it played out, comedy of errors, if you like, misfortunes, misconceptions, it did look like an Igbo coup to those observers who are from the north. And I think it's important that this is actually patiently explained to them at any time the question arises.
Yes.
I always said, Nigerians said all the time, if that was you, how would you feel?
Yes, exactly. Yes, thank you very much. And Colonel, I'd like to ask you why you, at the time, your group, deemed it fit to hand it over to the person of Awolowo. Was he, did you see certain leadership qualities in him as a Nigerian? Or, he's seen as this, after the war, he's seen as this tribal, mainly for people from the south, you see him as a tribalistic person. So at the time, why did you deem it fit to hand it over to such a person if you could say, if you see him that way?
Well, Awolowo, before all this, was the premier of Western Nigeria.
Okay.
And we saw, I have to use this expression, the wonders he performed in the West.
Okay.
Free education, you name it.
Yeah.
Health. And the West became a model.
Okay.
So, and remember that while all these things were going on, he got into trouble.
True.
With the federal government.
Okay.
That earned him that imprisonment in Calabar.
Yes.
So Awolowo was nowhere around to have any discussions with us.
Okay.
He did not even know.
Okay. So it wasn't a plot. It wasn't a plot.
It wasn't
between himself and you.
approach or whatever.
Yeah.
But we felt that if he could do that in the West,
Okay.
he didn't need too much prodding to do this, replicate it in
All over
Nigeria.
Yeah.
And that was what we had in mind.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
And I was going to ask another question which people always ask again is you've answered a bit of it, which is to do with when the leaders from the north and the south were taken out. I don't want to use the strong words. What explanation do you give to the ones in the southeast for not being taken out? If I can, what is there any clear explanation for that?
Well, I thought you heard it earlier, but let me go through it again. There were problems in the West.
Okay.
And the center of that problem was, or the instigator
was in the West.
Was in the West.
Okay.
But the instigator was
the
Sadana himself.
Okay. Yeah.
The West was at peace.
Okay.
Quite peaceful.
Yeah.
And you don't go to an area.
What do you mean, the east? The east, you mean?
Sorry,
did I say? Well, you said the West, yeah.
The east.
Yeah.
You don't give medicine to somebody
who's healthy.
Yeah, when there are so many sick people who need it somewhere else.
True.
And that was a simple analysis of what happened.
Okay. We're gonna go on a quick break now, and when we return, Colonel Nwobosi is gonna tell us a bit about the person of Nzogu. I know most Nigerians we never really get to. We've heard historical snippets of him, but maybe you tell us a bit of experience with him, and then we're gonna hear from Mr. Chukwudum a bit more about his, outlook on the 1966 coup. We'll see you soon.
Ohaneze World Igbo Day London 2019 Kagabu first of its kind in Ohanine. Ohaneze Ndibo UK in collaboration with her affiliate member organizations AMO. Memma Gabu Memma Bali Atonimo 1 June 28, 29, 30th of June 2019, Friday 28 June 2019 International Conference. The development of Igbo land and the role of diasporas. Yabi Humuna Ibudi Kebina Animaduge Meko Budai Wedima. Saturday 29th of June 2019 Gabuzi Mmahu Fiesta. Fundraising for Hanese Civic Center, London, UK. Traditional and cultural display wee tinyere award a ga-enye ọtụtụ ndị mmadụ. Sunday 30th of June 2019 ga-abụ Thanksgiving Interdenominational Service ndị Igbo gbasiri ike n'obodo anyị bụ Nigeria, Africa, Asia, America, Europe, mba ụwa niile ga-awụchi na mmemme a. Onye ga-abụ onye isi oche mmemme a ga-abụ President General Ọhaneze ndị Igbo Worldwide, Chief John Nwobosi. Ndị ọbịa pụrụ iche a na-atụ anya ha bụ Eastern Governors niile, Ministers, Senators, Traditional Rulers nakwa Captains of Industries. Nke bụ eziokwu bụ na ọ ga-adị egwu, ọ ga-adị kpọkpọ, Igbo bụ Igbo, Ọhaneze, orukwa n'omume, mmọnwụ dị iche iche ga-agba, egwu ọdịnala, ogene ga-aha n'ụbọchị ahụ. Ejirizi ọra wee na-agwa onye ọbụna community organizations dị iche iche ka ha gbaa mbọ hụ na ha nọ n'ụbọchị ahụ. Cheta na ọtụtụ ihe a ga-emegasị bụ ihe gbasara asụsụ Igbo, omenala ndị Igbo nakwa ọtụtụ ihe ndị ọzọ ga-eweta mmepe n'ala Igbo anyị. Chief osu mmemme a bụ Dr. Nnanna Igwe, President Ọhaneze ndị Igbo United Kingdom, RSVP Chief Patrick Mwokwe, Chairman Organizing Committee. Ka aka bụ ọkwa nke mbụ aka na-ama iji wee na-akwado mmụọ ndị mmadụ maka ụbọchị ahụ. Ya bụ na a na-atụ anya na onweghị onye Igbo ọbụla bi na mba United Kingdom ga-akanye ihe n'abalị atọ anyị kpọpụtara. Chọọ ime inquiries kpọtụrụ akara ndị a 079-8466-7527 074-479-41982 nakwa akara ndị ọzọ. Ọhaneze World Igbo Day London 2019.
Bó ti yá gbogbo aláyẹyẹ pẹ̀lú ní pàtì àti ilé ìjọsìn ẹ fẹ́ ṣe polówó Heritage TV Heritage TV wọ́n bẹ nílùú London o Heritage TV wọ́n fọwọ́ wọn sọ̀yà o Heritage.
Ẹ̀yin aráàlú London ǹjẹ́ ẹ ti gbọ́ pé iléeṣẹ́ Heritage TV tún ti gbé àrà tuntun yọ o. Gbogbo àríyá yín pátápátá la ó máa bá yín polongo rẹ̀ jákèjádò gbogbo ayé ká máa ṣayẹyẹ ní London ká sì máa wò l'Amẹ́ríkà ní Nàìjíríà àti káàkiri àgbáyé lẹ́sẹ̀kẹsẹ̀ àti lójú kan náà bó jẹ́ lórí fídíò tàbí lórí photograph tó mọ́lẹ̀ yékéyéké. Heritage TV ní bàbá o. Gbogbo àwọn ayẹyẹ yín bí ọjọ́ ìbí, ìsìnkú àgbà, ìgbéyàwó, àjọ̀dún ilé ìjọsìn yín Heritage Television ní kẹ́ ẹ máa bọ̀ tààràtà. Ìlú London la wà, United Kingdom la tẹ̀dó sí. Ẹ kàn sí wa lórí ẹ̀rọ ìbánisọ̀rọ̀ yìí 020-800-46100 tàbí lórí ẹ̀rọ alátagbà wa ayẹyẹ@heritagetv.co.uk àti lórí ẹ̀rọ alágbèéká 0734-123-4560. Heritage TV abalẹ̀tù ọmọdé la wó.
You're welcome back to the podium.
Thank you.
I'm still here with Colonel Emmanuel Nwobosi and Mr. Chukwudum Ikeazor. Thanks for staying with us. Before we went on the break, I talked about we will have to discuss. Maybe we would like you to enlighten us about Major Nzogu at the time. Just tell us a bit of your experience with him, because you know he's a historical figure that you only see snippets of him on YouTube, and where he was making one speech or so. There's never anything, you just see this handsome man that made a few comments and here and there. But we want to know from your experience. What was he like? Who was he?
Chukwuma. He was Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzogu.
Okay.
And the name Kaduna came from Kaduna, where he was born.
Okay.
And he spoke fluent Hausa,
Okay.
as well as good English. We went to St. John's College, Kaduna, together.
Okay.
That was where we met
Okay.
the first time. He was my senior. And there in the college, one thing stood out about him. He had his classmates and friends, but he was more at home. Let me put it, he was always at home with people who were junior to him.
Okay.
Unlike the usual thing
Yeah.
in secondary schools. Well, second years, you fag the
Junior was
the junior ones. Even after then, when a junior comes to you, yes, what do you want? No, I don't have the time now.
Yeah.
But Nzogu will have the time for you. Nzogu was not a known footballer. We all play games and all that. But instead, Nzogu will, in fact, in athletics, we were doing all sorts of events. But Nzogu will come and run the track so many times over.
Well, so he was athletic.
He was athletic.
Okay.
But he wasn't in there for competition
Okay.
and all that. He was nice. At least we saw him that way. After he left college, the next time we met was he joined the army, and I was still in college. I came out, went into civil service for 1 year and joined the army. We met again in the army. And I remember after my years at Sandhurst, from there we were posted on paper to go into the Nigerian artillery. And because we were still in the UK, they arranged for us to go for artillery training in Salisbury Plain. And while we were there, because I was still in touch with Nzogu, one day I was in the TV room watching TV. They called me and said I had a phone call. You know, we didn't have these mobile phones yet. It was landline. So I got to the, it was Nzogu. He was so happy. He got me and we talked. And then he told me he had come there, the School of Intelligence, to do some training. Because, we talked for quite a while. And then I told him about, so eventually we met back in Nigeria. And I found him very, very interesting. He had his classmate, Chris Hanoforo, who, of course, was a major too. But Chris Hanoforo, you know, I liked him, I dealt with him, but he was not as warm and as welcoming as Nzogu. That's the big difference. So Nzogu will always listen to junior officers. And in fact, I remember that the day or the night I just left the officers' mess back to the accommodation where I shared with Nzogu and one other officer. I was sitting there when a car drove in. I didn't know who the hell it was. Eventually the person came in and it was Emmanuel Fajuna, who was stationed in Lagos, 2 Brigade. So I was surprised. I greeted him, gave him courtesy. He said he's just coming from Lagos, and he'll be going back to Lagos that night. That he would like to see Nzogu. So that he was happy he met me. I said, okay, hold on, let me go and call him. I left and went back to the mess. And they told me, they saw Nzogu with Major Emma Udaje. Just leave. And the direction they went, I guessed the next place was to check at Udaje's house. All of us were living with him. So I got there and said, here you are. The reason I would say this is because of his closeness with junior officers. I said, here you are. That I went to look for you in the mess. That there are some junior officers from the Air Force, the new Air Force, that they were in the house, they wanted to see you. He said, he told Daja, please, So both of us left to digest place.
Okay.
It was on our way back to our house.
Yeah.
I told him no. I had to use that line to confuse him.
Yeah.
That it was Major Emma Ifajuna.
Okay.
And he was talking about what you and I have been talking about for quite some time.
Yeah.
What was it? It was about the situation in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So,
but before you continue, I was going to ask you something. What was the selection process then for going into Sandhurst? You know, like, because Sandhurst seems to be an elitist kind of institution. Is it still the same today? And but then, how was the selection done?
I wouldn't know about today, but at that time, the first thing is in the Nigerian context, because they give Nigeria, they give different Commonwealth countries, or even then their colonies.
Yeah.
They give them their quota.
Okay.
So for my own intake, Nigeria had only four
slots. Is it then? Okay.
For my own. Then in Nigeria, in my own set, we were, I will imagine, around 40-something cadets who made it to Nigerian Military Training College, which is now the Defense Academy. The first 6 months, you do all sorts of training, and at the end, you go through your final selection board. So, to get about 35 that passed through that course was by itself a real task.
Yeah.
Then, from that 35, to get 4
for
Sandhurst slot, it was anybody's guess.
Yeah. So to be the best, really.
So if you're lucky,
if
you're lucky to be in that slot, you thank yourself. And I'll tell you, there was this drama when they pasted the results at the end of our 6 months. They pasted it, and as soon as we knew about it, everybody dashed to the board. Of course, when you got there, there'll be some cadets who were there before you, and you couldn't see far, and everybody was trying to find out. One is to find out if you made it.
Okay.
It's not really where you're going.
It's about if you made it first.
To make it. So I kept looking, and each time you looked at certain names, they looked like their name, only to find out, no, it's not you. Eventually, you see the thing, and then you look against it, you see RMAS.
What does that mean?
It was magical. Royal Military Academy.
Oh, Sandhurst. Okay.
And look, I didn't know whether it was true or not. I felt this could have been a dream.
Okay. Yeah.
I looked at it again, and again, and again. Eventually I said, Jim Emmanuel.
Yes. Yes.
It's not only that God made me pass that course, which wasn't easy, but got me into Sandhurst slot, which was another
task in itself. Oh, wonderful.
Then the rest will have to go to months of secretariat, which was a short service.
Okay. And since you're here with us, I can't have the discussion without asking you about your interaction with the Dim himself, or the Megojukwu. I know he wasn't part of the 66 coup per se, but he was an Igbo leader, one of the military icons.
That's right.
How did you know him? And presumably you were friends with him as well.
Eventually.
Okay.
But at first, he was, he looked so distant.
Okay.
But I first knew about him while we were in Kaduna.
Okay.
Because St. John's College, there was John Bigger.
Okay.
I don't know if you know about it, you heard of Bigger. Bigger was his half-brother.
Okay.
And he was my senior by 2 years in college.
Yeah.
And the fact that Bigger was there, and I knew he was answering Bigger, but we knew that to Ojukwu. So eventually, the first time I met him, he was posted to one of the units in Kaduna while we were still in college.
Okay.
And of course, we continued hearing stories. And then there were very, very few Nigerian officers in the army at the time.
Yeah.
They were mainly British.
Okay.
So eventually, I met Ojukwu, and it wasn't, how will I put it? It wasn't a formal meeting. When I met him formally, eventually, was, I will even say, when we started, well, long after the coup and our detention, and then we came back.
Well, after being on exile, because of want of time, I was going to ask you about your time away, and
okay.
But we're going to cut it across like
Okay.
this thing.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I'm trying to pinpoint the particular time I met him. But eventually, I started working in his headquarters.
Okay. That was when he returned from, was that in the 80s? Or?
No, that was during the
civilian
Biafran
era.
War.
Okay, during the war, okay, sorry.
During the Biafran War.
Okay.
And I was put in there because I had my injury.
Okay.
Which nearly ruined my spinal cord. So after hospitalization, I was taken there. I couldn't go back to the field immediately. So I was taken to, actually, I went to my car with my driver to the defense headquarters because I didn't go straight to Ojukwu. It wasn't easy. I went to General Effiong, who was the chief of defense staff, and I reported fit and ready for duty. So he was happy to see me too. So he said, okay. Tidied his desk, took me to defense operations, where Ojukwu will part of his building. So I met Ojukwu, I believe formally there, very formally. So he was happy to see me. He knew about me, I knew about him. So he posted me to the defense office. That's just outside his own office. And there was Colonel Anwuna, Pat Anwuna, who was the chief of operations at the time. He said I should be understudying Pat Anwuna and help him out too. So we got there. And I think Anwuna saw me and got happy that he had somebody to relieve him. Most of the time, Ojukwu would call, because we had a hotline. He would call and I'll pick the phone. Your Excellency, say, Pat. I say, no sir, Nwobosi. That type of thing. So eventually, Pat Anwuna was on his way out. So I will imagine after some months, Anwuna was posted to defense headquarters, that's General Effiong's headquarters, where they made him principal staff officer, logistics. It was better than in there. And that was how I got fully into operations.
And moving forward, because of time really, when most of the Nigerian military men from the old era, there's this part, and most of them end up joining, taking up the military garb and going into politics.
Okay.
Did you ever go into politics, or you didn't feel it was necessary, or why haven't you gone that way?
Well, I'll tell you, I've never liked party politics.
Okay.
It's not that I didn't hate it. Even when Ojukwu was doing politics, I was his aide, helping him out. But what they were doing never took my fancy.
Okay. Is it this system? Is it because of the system of government? You know, like then it was the regional system then, and now we have the federal system. What do you, this current setup and the constitution and per se? What's your opinion on how it is, how Nigeria is constituted today?
I'll tell you this: when we had the regions, every region developed at this pace.
Okay.
And that was why Awolowo was able to develop at this pace, much to the envy of the other regions.
Okay.
Zik handed over the East to Opera, and Opera started its own way to the admiration of a lot of people.
True.
So, with all those setups, when they talk about, what do you call it? What's the word for it?
Restructuring.
I believe that's what they are heading for.
Yeah.
Because if you restructure and people develop, if you're doing well, you are doing well for yourself.
True.
In fact, there was somebody who suggested at one time, he said, since, that was during the war, it was a joke. He said, all this shelling and bombing we're having is because of the oil.
Yeah.
If it's for this oil, let them call Gowon.
Yeah.
No, Ojukwu and Gowon should settle.
Yes.
Ojukwu give Gowon the oil, but let us
stop
peace.
killing. Okay, and Mr. Chukwudum, I'd like to ask you to give us an insight into your own opinion on the system of governance today, the federal system, and from your historical, background, the regional system, and like maybe in a way, enlighten Nigerians as the better way forward.
I don't think I have the answer to the better way forward, if you ask me. I don't think I can give you any pointers to the way forward, but I can say this very quickly. What you have now in Nigeria is a federal government in name, not in practice. Prior to 1966, we had a federal government. Of course, we had regions, but bear in mind that regions are comparable to states. These are the units within the country itself. What we had before the war was the federal government, because each region itself controlled its own resources, controlled its own revenue, and then submitted a little bit of the revenue to the federal for federal costs. What we have now, the federal government controls the resources in your state. That is, if those resources are oil, not gold, as you find in Zamfara State today.
Yes.
Are you following what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, the federal government, since 1968 or 69, reversed the revenue allocation decree. Because prior to that, it was 100% what you find in your region. If you find oil there, if you produce coal, if you produce cocoa, granules, that's yours. It's in your land. But during the war, they reversed it by decree. Decree, of course, it's a military decree, which is to say, whoever is in power by reason of the gun can decide what he wants.
Yes.
Turned things around. When the war ended, it carried on. When we had the new constitution, when we had the new federal government, when we had a democracy of sorts, it carried on.
So there's been opportunities to change it.
Yeah, so what we have now is not really a federal government, federal system in reality.
True. So, before we leave, Nwobosi, I'd like you to talk to Nigerians and tell Nigerians about, your septuagenarian, where opportunities still have you here with us. I mean, sometimes I look at some of the documentaries of old and I see, and I wish they spoke to us, So I'd like you to speak to Nigerians, the cameras over there, speak to Nigerians and tell us how we should live, as a people, and maybe speak to those leaders as to how to make Nigeria move forward.
Or the hard though.
It's difficult, you said, yes.
Fellow Nigerians, I want to talk to you and give you a piece of advice, and this is from my heart. I have gone through all these things. We tried to build a better country. It did not work. But that does not mean it will never work. We have a government, and the whole idea of election is to put a government of our choice there. If you try now, it doesn't work, try again. I would imagine that some of you will be surprised that I didn't say pick up arms. No. I'm in the army. I used to be in the army. And that was something left to us in order to defend our country, not to fight our country. When we thought it was necessary to save our country from those who thought it was a private property, we tried. I bet you we tried. We had sleepless nights. It did not work. I will advise you to continue trying the ballot box. One day, God will listen to our supplications. I know for a lot of people who will want it today or tomorrow. Rome was not built in a day. If it were built in a day, well, there'll be so many rooms around. Thank you.
Okay, Nigerians, we've heard from our legend with us today. We've had a legend. We've heard from the colonel. Nigeria is the only country we have. We need to work hard to make it a nation we can all be proud of. We need to insist that the political process must be followed. The democratic process is the only peaceful process we have in this world. So I'm opportune and I'm happy to have had the colonel with us today, and I'm hoping that next time he's around, if God will keep him for us to keep on coming and giving us snippets, words of advice as to how to move Nigeria forward for the wealth of experiences. And so, Colonel, I'd like to thank you for being on the program today.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Ikeazor, it's been an opportunity. I'm going to have you back soon to talk a bit more about your book, perhaps, to enlighten Nigerians a bit more, because I think there's a void, there's a gap about what really happened, and we need to have more time to engage with Nigerians and put out the right narrative about what happened.
Exactly.
So this has been me, Spencer, and Emmanuel on the podium today, and keep a date with me every Thursdays between 7 and 9 o'clock. I'll be here on Heritage TV. See you next week. Thank you very much for being with us. Bye-bye.
bó ti yá. gbogbo aláyẹyẹ pẹ̀lú ní pati àti ilé ìjọsìn ẹ fẹ́ ṣe polówó. Heritage TV Heritage TV
wọ́n bẹ nílùú London o.
Heritage TV
wọ́n fọwọ́ wọn sọ̀yà o.
Heritage TV.
ẹ̀yin aráàlú London ǹjẹ́ ẹ ti gbọ́ pé iléeṣẹ́ Heritage TV tún ti gbé àrà tuntun yọ o gbogbo àríyá yín pátápátá la ó máa bá yín polongo rẹ̀ jákèjádò gbogbo ayé ká máa ṣayẹyẹ ní London ká sì máa wò l'Amẹ́ríkà ní Nàìjíríà àti káàkiri àgbáyé lẹ́sẹ̀kẹsẹ̀ àti lójú kan náà bó jẹ́ lórí fídíò tàbí lórí photograph tó mọ́lẹ̀ yékéyéké Heritage TV ní bàbá o gbogbo àwọn ayẹyẹ yín bí ọjọ́ ìbí ìsìnkú àgbà ìgbéyàwó àjọ̀dún ilé ìjọsìn yín Heritage Television ní kẹ́ ẹ máa bọ̀ tààràtà ìlú London la wà United Kingdom la tẹ̀dó sí ẹ kàn sí wa lórí ẹ̀rọ ìbánisọ̀rọ̀ yìí 020-800-46100 tàbí lórí ẹ̀rọ alátagbà wa ayẹyẹ@heritagetv.co.uk àti lórí ẹ̀rọ alágbèéká 0734-123-4560 Heritage TV abalẹ́tù ọmọdé la wó.
Ohaneze World Igbo Day London 2019 Kagabu first of its kind in Ohanine. Ohaneze Ndibo UK in collaboration with her affiliate member organizations AMO. Memma Gabu Memma Bali Atonimo 1 June 28, 29, 30th of June 2019. Friday 28 June 2019 International Conference. The development of Igbo land and the role of diasporas. Yabi Humuna Budi Kebina Animaduge Meko Budai Wedima. Saturday 29th of June 2019. Gabuzi Mmahu Fiesta. Fundraising for Hanese Civic Center, London, UK. Traditional and cultural display. Wetiere award again. Sunday 30th of June 2019. Gabu Thanksgiving. Interdenominational service. Nwobosi Kenobodaibu Nigeria, Africa, Asia, America, Europe. Mbuwanine Gawuchi na Memma. Onye Gabo Nisioche Memma Gabu President General Hanese Ndibo Worldwide. Chief Jorun Nyangodo. Ndiobia preacher na Atwanya Habu. Eastern governors nine ministers, senators, traditional rulers na kwa captains of industries. Kebezi okubu na oga adiegu, oga adipokpo. Igbo bibo, Ohaneze, Orukwan omume mmọnwụ dị iche iche ga-agba egwu ọdịnala. Ogene ga-aha n'ụbọchị ahụ. Ejizora wee na-agwa onye ọbụna community organizations dị iche iche ka ha gba mbọ hụ na ha nọ n'ụbọchị ahụ. Cheta na ọtụtụ ihe ha ga-emegasị bụ ihe gbasara asụsụ Igbo, omenala ndị Igbo nakwa ọtụtụ ihe ndị ọzọ ga-eweta mmepe n'ala Igbo anyị. Chief osu mmemme bụ Dr. Nnanna Igwe, President Ohaneze ndị Igbo United Kingdom, RSVP Chief Patrick Mwokwe, Chairman Organizing Committee. Ka aka bụ ọkwa nke mbụ aka na-ama iji wee na-akwado mmụọ ndị mmadụ maka ụbọchị ahụ. Ya bụ na a na-atụ anya na onweghị onye Igbo ọbụla bi na mba United Kingdom ga-akanye ihe n'abalị atọ anyị kpọpụtara. Chọọ ime inquiries kpọtụrụ akara ndị a 079-8466-7527 074-479-41982 nakwa akara ndị ọzọ. Ohaneze World Igbo Day London 2019.
My daughter-in-law. So how are you planning for my son's birthday? I have to cook for her. Do you people have ogirisi there? No. It's okay. Okay, let me call you back. Mama Chiji, okay. Hi, so wait a market. Please pack some ogirisi. I am going to visit my son. My daughter-in-law. It's arranged. But you must use original red oil to prepare the soup. What? I'll call you back. Mama Chijo, please include Isio Morocco. My daughter-in-law. Everything is now set. But don't forget that gold wristwatch I saw the last time I visited you.
Now you can talk until you tire for just 11 kobo a second. Call all networks in Nigeria and 30 international destinations, including US, UK, China, Canada, and India for just 11 kobo per second. Dial *211# to activate.
That's Silk Boo-Boo.
The largest data network, Glow, Grandmasters of Data.